Welcome to the world. These are the first little baby seedlings of the summer garden. Hey guys, welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. And today I have brand new babies. This is only half of the seeds that I plan to start. I've been a little behind on seed starting, but not much, just a couple of days. And I'm starting to see my first sweet peppers coming up. And also, if you look right there, you can see the very tippy top of my first tomato sprouting. Not a whole lot to see with these other indoor plants. Although I did want to tell you my ginger still has not sprouted, and I think that is totally fine. And I also did want to mention this plant here in the back is raspberry cutting that I took. I actually had 4 of these cuttings that I took, and that is the only one that has survived. So I'm doing only okay, about 25% success rate with these raspberries. And then this lemongrass right here, this is the only one that survived. This other one died. Maybe it got too dry or something, but I do have one lemongrass plant that I can plant out if the one that I have out there doesn't actually end up coming back after the winter. So today we're going to go out in the garden and check on all the new little baby seedlings that I actually just transplanted out there. And then today for our rotating segment, I'm going to talk about how I'm currently using produce that I grew in my garden. And that is going to include not just stuff that I'm currently harvesting, but also stuff that I harvested in the summer and put up and I'm still using during the winter. All right, Draco, you ready to go out? Oh, no. Oh, but Kata wants to come out. The garden is still kind of barren looking from afar. Most of what we can see is the Romanescos over here and the Brussels sprouts over there. But when we look really close, we'll find all the new little seedlings that I planted. I had 2 full trays, if you remember, of brassicas and lettuces. And this is all that's left that I haven't planted out yet. I planted 1 entire tray, and all I have left are just some extra lettuces. Planting started plants actually turns out to be a lot of work. I find myself getting really tired of it really fast. I don't know why. It's not particularly hard, but it does just take a really long time. You figure out where the plant's gonna go, and you have to make the little hole, and then you have to put the plant in, and then you have to rearrange everything around it. So I find myself not tending to do large amounts of that all at once. I don't know if y'all can hear the birds, but it is super nice out here. It's almost 60 degrees, which I think is somewhere around 15 Celsius. But anyways, right here at the front, this is most of where all the lettuces went. If we squat down, you can see much better. So we've got a Merlot lettuce here. This is a dwarf pea sprout that has been here all winter. This one I think is a Cosmo romaine, and this one over here is a Jericho romaine, and this is another pea sprout. There's actually quite a few of these around, and I do want to add a few more. And then along here is my garlic and onion starts. You can see them going all the way up the row. I have 2 ages, I guess, of fava beans in my garden. I have these ones, which are older plants that got kind of big and have kind of struggle bust their way through the winter. But you can see this is new growth coming from the middle here. It looks super healthy. And I just keep hoping that having this established here with a root system and everything will mean that I will get a harvest of these a little sooner than I would have with it than if I planted some fresh seeds now, for instance. But the trade-off there is that I don't know if continually getting knocked back by the cold is actually stunting them. permanently in some way. And whether or not they would just be healthier if they got to grow up when it was a little warmer and they didn't have to get frozen every week. Our little spinach baby is actually finally looking big enough for me to think about harvesting from it. I cannot remember at all what variety this is, but this is definitely the size where I would start pulling leaves off of this spinach. It looks very healthy and well established now, and I guess we'll see how long it takes before it's warm enough for it to start going to seed. I probably will try and collect seeds from it though, once it does. I'm coming to the back of the row where all the Brussels sprouts are. It actually took me a while to notice, but I think all of these are the same variety except for this one. You can see there's a definite difference in how round the leaves are compared to how kind of ruffly everything else is. And I noticed that this one in particular is also making the most closed Brussels sprouts of any of these plants. All these other ones, if I come over here, you can see these are very loose and open, and I would like them to be tighter. So what I'm gonna do is wait for this one to make seeds, and if that is the only one that I have of this type, then it's gonna have to cross with something in order to get seeds. But I am very curious to see if I can save these genetics somehow. Over here, next to where the Brussels sprouts are, this is where a lot of my other big brassicas got planted out. These are just little babies right now, but these are my like cabbages and broccolis and cauliflowers and such, and some of them have already had a little bit of a shock as it got cold. Yeah, that is not ideal. Some of them I hope survive, and I don't know if they'll have time to head up or not. I think I started these far too late, and probably rushed the hardening off process because I really needed those seed trays to start all my summer stuff. But we'll see if any of these grow up, and I'm actually really hoping that they'll at least start covering the soil and attracting microbial life to their root zones so that this area is really healthy and ready for my plants when summer comes. Kata, what you doing? Are you looking for a good plant to lay down on? Garlic sprouts along this row are already growing really well. There's already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves growing on this. That is awesome. These things look so healthy. This has got to be the 3rd year of this genetic line of garlic being in my garden. And every time I select for the largest cloves, and I'm also selecting for the ones that did the best in my garden. So they should do better year over year. Checking in on the Romanescos. This is my prettiest looking head right now. And it was growing really fast, and now it's kind of slowed down. So what I'm doing is I'm watching for signs of it starting to loosen up, which it is just a tiny bit. But we'll give it just a little bit more time to grow before harvesting. Now next to it is maybe my worst looking one. This one started off looking great, and pretty sure this plant is sick. It's got some aphids, and usually that's an indicator that it's just not having a good time for one reason or another. I've noticed that plants in this general area don't do quite as well as other stuff, and I think it's probably for a couple different reasons. First of all, closer to this side of the garden towards me, I think I spread less compost than I did in the middle when I was originally setting this place up. So I tend to hit clay faster around here. But second of all, this row is on the uphill side of the garden, and it's much more likely to have nutrients and water like wash over it instead of staying and sinking down in. And so the farther you get over this way, the more like topsoil and stuff has collected over the years, as opposed to over here. So I'm not just talking about like the years I've been here, but like the whole time that this bit of yard has been sloped like this. This has been higher up than this. Also, Kata in the background is chasing something. Those are some guesses as to why plants in this area tend to not do quite as well. Oh, look at this dandelion already flowering out here in February. Not just a ton to report as far as raised beds, although I don't think I told you guys, I found asparagus crowns at Lowe's and decided to plant them here and see how that goes. As far as the onions that I have planted in here, I wanted to show y'all how I can tell that they are actually getting established and doing well. You see these tops with the brown tips. These are the tips that they had on them when I got them. These probably were chopped short before they were shipped. And then if you look in the middle, there's this new little leaf coming up. And that looks really green and healthy. And that is how I know that this plant is getting established in this area. Here's another one with a teeny tiny little leaf coming up. And then again over here, teeny tiny leaf coming up. These ones being brown and not looking great, that's just because of how they were cut with shipping and being stored dry for some time during the shipping process. But that little new leaf, that is what we're looking at to determine the health of these plants. Over here in the berry patch, I've noticed that these blueberries, their little buds are starting to open up. You can see they're starting to bulge, and some of them, let me find, I think on this other one, they're just a little more open. Yeah, you can see this one's making a brand new leaf right there. And I'm only a little bit worried about that. I don't know if this means that the next like deep frost that comes is going to kill off all these little buds. But there's not a whole lot I can do about that. So, oh yeah, these ones are starting to really open up. I guess we will see how they do. Maybe I should trust the plants to know what they're doing. Speaking of buds, we can also see on my blackberry here, these buds coming in, starting to actually open up, that tender little part coming out. And there's also some on the raspberries. If we look close enough, we can see it starting to happen on some of these younger shoots. Let me try and find one for you. Right here is one of my first little raspberry leaves coming out. So that means it is almost time to go ahead and do the pruning over here. I'll probably wait 1 to 2 more weeks just so that it becomes very obvious which ones are going to have live buds on them and which ones are like fully dead. All right, let's come inside and talk about how I'm using my produce. So welcome to my very messy kitchen. Let's go through a few of the ways I'm using fresh produce, and then we'll talk about the stuff that I grew and preserved. As far as fresh produce, right now I have carrots. These I actually just harvested kind of in bulk so that I know which ones I'm harvesting and which ones I'm leaving for seeds for next year. And these are mostly just here for snacking and also to add to salads that I make from all the lettuce that could be coming in from the garden. Right now I'm just making Brussels sprout salads mostly, and I do have a video about how to make one of those if you've never heard of it. I think they're absolutely delicious. Currently in my fridge I also have a chimichurri sauce that I made with homegrown garlic and parsley, and that is about the extent of the fresh eating I've been doing. There's actually not a lot coming out of the garden right now, not a lot I can do with it, to be honest. But if we go to the pantry and the freezer, we can see a lot more of the garden. Right here at the front, I've got all these dried beans. These are some fava beans, some noodle beans, and some blue cocoa beans. And all of these beans I have been using in dishes basically throughout the year. Up here I also have the popcorn that I grew. You can see how much of it I've gone through already. I'm trying to like not like save it, you know, and see how much of this I actually go through before I get more popcorn next year. And I have some store-bought back there as backup. But I have been eating exclusively homegrown popcorn ever since I harvested this stuff. I'm also in the process of drying more garlic for garlic powder. This is garlic that came out of the garden in the summer. And actually, once you've got the cloves all dried out like this, you can store them like this for quite a while. I recommend grinding them kind of in small batches because they'll stay much fresher, and you'll get a much stronger garlic powder flavor if you just grind them a little bit at a time, as opposed to grinding them and then letting them sit for like another 6 months at the bottom of the jar until you end up using it. I've always got some amount of herbs drying here. Right now we have some thyme, some curry plant, and some dill, along with my garlic, and I think that this is Mexican tarragon that I harvested in the summer. These I can like come by and just like kind of crinkle a little bit off into something if I want, or I can take the time to actually put these in a jar like maybe I should. But these generally I harvest herbs as needed and dry them in small batches. A lot of my spice rack these days is made up of things that I've grown. We've got coriander seeds there at the top that I grew, some dried wine cap mushrooms, purple dead nettle, licorice mint. Almost all of my hot pepper powders are homegrown. We've got a bunch of herbs that have been homegrown. I've also got onion flakes that I will sometimes grind up into onion powder. And so all of this stuff that I grow during the summer serves me all year long. Now if we open up the freezer, what we've got in here, we've got some lemongrass stalks that I grew this year. We've got a bunch of frozen peppers. Sometimes I just pull these out and chop these up to use instead of fresh hot peppers. These cayennes I really should dry out and powder at some point. We've got some serranos back here. We also have frozen ginger. I've got a big bag in here and another big bag in my chest freezer downstairs. This is Ivar. This is like a Serbian roasted red pepper and eggplant sauce. I freeze it in cubes and then defrost it as needed to just munch on as snacks mostly. I've got so many bags of pesto that I made this summer that are in here. This is actually acorn flour that I harvested and made myself. This is gnocchi that I made from homegrown potatoes, and I freeze and so use that from time to time. We've got vegetable broth scraps. Almost all of this comes from stuff that I grew, and then I make broth out of that. I don't want to go all the way down to the big freezer, but down there I still have frozen berries from the summer that I can pull from if I want to make like a pie or if I want to make a smoothie. I also have baba ganoush, which similar to the Ivar, it's an eggplant based sauce, and I freeze it in big cubes and defrost it on an as needed basis. I like to just microwave it and then get some naan and dip it and eat it. It feels like a really filling snack, and it's a really fancy appetizer to serve, honestly. And then if I look at my list, I also still have green beans that I froze. These are blanched and then frozen flat and then put into a plastic bag in the deep freezer. And that I mostly just get out to make green bean casseroles. I don't like the texture of frozen green beans just on their own, but in a green bean casserole it works. I've got this nasturtium tincture out on my counter right now. I don't know if y'all can tell, but I'm like just mildly congested. And this is really good for boosting your immune system. So I've got some nasturtium tincture, and then in my tea cabinet I also have just a bunch of like tea herbs that I've saved. I've got some plantain, a ton of my holy basil, I've got wild violets and chamomile in here, and also calendula back here that I haven't done anything with yet. And then back behind that I've got strawberry leaves, I've got lemongrass, I've also got blue butterfly pea flowers in here somewhere. So a lot of my herbs also go towards dried teas that I keep and use throughout the year. I do still have some potatoes that I've stored down here in my kitchen, and as you can see, they're almost all sprouting very vigorously. So these at this point are mostly just here as storage until it's time to plant them outside. But usually what I'll be doing is I'll be pulling from these as well for eating during the year. And then of course we can't forget the canned goods. At this point I mostly just have jam, I have tomato sauce, I do have one more cacciatore sauce jar. These are peppadew peppers and a bunch of just plain tomato sauce. I also have quite a bit of salsa left over up there, 1 can of diced tomatoes, and 1 can of pickles. Again, these are things that I've made during the summer that I am still putting into my cooking throughout the year, and have become really convenient make-ahead meals, honestly. Like the cacciatore sauce, I usually make chicken cacciatore, so I just like brown some chicken in a pan, and then once it's browned, I dump all the sauce over it and simmer it for a while. Serve that with some veggies, over some pasta, maybe over some rice. You've got a meal so fast, so easy, but it's all homegrown, homemade. So that's awesome. This coming year, I'm really trying to focus on incorporating pressure canning into my setup as well. I've struggled with pressure canning on my stove. It seems to just not be hot enough consistently enough to actually run the giant pressure canner that I have. So I got a propane burner to deal with that this year. So hopefully we'll have some pressure canned goods on these shelves next year as well. But I'll redo this segment in a couple of months when I'm getting more fresh produce from the garden, and I'll continue updating you guys on how I'm using that, because I think a lot of people get into gardening and they start growing stuff and then they're like, oh my god, I didn't realize that I don't actually cook with fresh fruits and vegetables as often as I thought I did. What do I do with all of this? And so hopefully me sharing what I'm doing will help you guys not let anything in your lovely garden go to waste this year. And if you do want more specific videos about like, okay, but how do you use eggplant? How do you go through this recipe? How do you make this? I have a playlist on my channel. It's called Harvest and Cook, and that is where I collect all of the videos that I make for you guys with specific recipes of how to use the stuff that comes out of your garden. I go all the way from how to harvest the thing, all the way through one of my favorite recipes on how to cook the thing. So if you're interested in that, those will be linked below, and also you can just go to my channel and scroll down and it'll be right there. Oh, baby Draco is taking a nap. Oh, hi baby. Well, me and Draco, as always, wish you happy gardening. I'll see you next time.